Really, really excited for this interview. Before we come on, I mentioned this to Damian, and Damian said, well, we haven't even done it yet, so it might be rubbish, but I'm guarantee it's not going to be rubbish because we've got Damian Hall with us. Damian, thank you for coming on, first and foremost.
Thanks for joining us, Damian, as well.
Hi, no, thank you. Yeah, keen to chat.
So I don't know if we start the podcast when we have a guest on, we always start with the same question: introduce yourself. So I'm sure you've got a lot to introduce. So introduce yourself.
Oh, I hate that one. I told you to go
Got him
back.
on the first question.
I'm a father of two, a runner, I suppose, a coach, a reformed journalist, author, and co-founder of the Green Runners.
And a very good ultra runner as well. I know that you've got a lot of records and a lot of best times and things for a lot of ultra marathons within this country and other countries as well. So it's great to have you on the podcast. And talking about being an author, I've mentioned this to Damian. I have actually read/listened to your book, We Can't Run Away From This, all about green running and how we can become a bit more, although you don't like the word in the book, sustainable. And it's a really good read, really good read. And like I say, it saved me from listening to the radio on the way back from listening to Man City or watching Man City yesterday. So how long has Green Runners been around?
Well, yeah, thank you for the plug. I can't imagine that would have cheered you up very much because much of the book isn't especially cheery.
I like the jokes at the end of each chapter, though. I must admit, some of them.
Thank you.
Some of them
almost
are
no
really,
one
really.
Has said that. Almost no one has said that. Thank you. I almost needed them for my own. Yeah, they're almost for me as much as anyone. I'm just trying to have a chuckle when it all seems so gloomy. But yeah, the Green Runners. We're almost exactly 2 years old, actually. I think even next week. Yeah. Cool. So it was probably late 2019. Me and Dan Lawson, another GB ultra runner, had realised we were both at the same Extinction Rebellion protest in London, and we just got chatting, and we sort of said, why don't we try and collect, any runners we knew who seemed to care about stuff. So anyone who said anything on social media, I guess it started off in the sort of trail and ultra running. I would just drop them a message and say, do you want to join our group? And we were called sort of Runners for XR at first, and it didn't end up being about 50 people, but we never really. I tried to sort of arrange a protest at COP28 in Glasgow, but yeah, I'm not a brilliant organizer of people. So it never really turned into much until my friend AJ Hanspel said, why don't we form a club? And it was like, oh yeah, well, of course, yeah, but that seemed the most obvious thing in the world. So quite quickly that turned into the Green Runners, which launched almost 2 years ago. And we've got over 1,000 members around the world now. So it really felt like we had no expectations really, and we weren't sure where that was going to go. But we just thought, the classic thing, what holds a lot of people and organisations and events back actually is the fear of, we've got to get it all perfect before we do anything. So it was a bit of a, hey, let's, we all believe in this. Let's just kind of launch and see what happens. Yeah. And it was really wonderful actually. Yeah, we got a little bit of coverage and stuff, and then people just seemed to sign up to become members. So that was really a really nice feeling. So positive. I mean, there's plenty of work ahead. So it's like with most of this, there's positive and negative feelings. But it's been. I'm glad we did it. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I felt quite guilty actually as I was driving to and I was listening to the podcast on the Audible, and it was talking about how we can limit the amount of travelling that we're doing, and I was on my way to watch Man City from Stoke-on-Trent to Manchester, and then driving back on my own in a single car and listening to things about how people in France and Switzerland are doing their things differently. So I felt quite guilty, but it is a really good book, and it's quite interesting as regards to not knowing a great deal about things like trainers, and every single trainer that's ever been made is still on this planet in some kind of form, if that's burnt or if it's buried under soil, and how long it takes for the trainer to actually disintegrate and things like that. So it was really interesting. So what do Green Runners do? So I know it's a running club, and I know that you talk about things like plogging, so things like going out and doing litter picking. Do you do them kind of things as well?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I don't know if we gave it too much thought. Like, what are we actually going to do? We just kind of thought, let's get on with it. We're running out of time. Things are urgent. Let's go. And we've ended up doing a wide variety of things. From, I suppose, yeah, if you're going to come up with almost a hierarchy of things to do in the world, flogging, picking up litter is sort of a sort of an uncontroversial kind of easy thing to do. It'd be towards the bottom of the sort of impactful things. It's still worth doing, of course, but
Yeah.
yeah, we get involved in things like that. But then right all the way up to, I mean, personally, I feel most strongly about, okay, I suppose sports washing, which is high carbon sponsors, and yeah, we both support football clubs who have high carbon sponsors, and it's rampant in football and other sports, but it's started to come into running too. So I feel quite strongly that yeah, those sponsors aren't welcome. And then you've got the middle ground is we've got a really good relationship now with say England Athletics, and there's a real good tie-in with the sort of some schemes that go direct to all the running clubs, to promote green champions and have sort of a greener framework there. So yeah, we're glad. Yeah, organisations like that have come on board. So yeah, the whole spectrum really. And I mean, yeah, people get regular emails, with, I suppose, things they can do, things they can get involved in. Members write, blogs for us. An email just went out today, which yeah, there's a great new blog on just by Shirin, about sort of yeah the fear of perfection again, actually, of being of being able to do things and know it's not perfect, and you can't do everything, but still having a go. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. I guess a bit of everything, and we're not, we didn't, what am I trying to say? Yeah, a bit of everything. It's quite interesting, and also we got a wide range of skill sets. So we, some people are passionate about the campaigning, and
Yeah.
and maybe even getting out in the street and stuff. And one other thing actually I should say is the running out of time relay. Now that's not ours as such. It's a separate organisation who do that. But this year will be the third running out of time relay. I think it's starting in June, so fairly soon, and it goes from all the way from Ben Nevis in Scotland all the way down to Big Ben in London. And last year it was really well organised and got a lot of media coverage, actually, especially on ITV. And I would say to people, yeah, if you got the chance, have a look out for it, because it tries to zigzag across the country. If you can't run at the moment, you can come and cycle, and you just sort of sign up for a leg or two, and yeah, all sorts of little events are arranged around it. And ultimately, one of the best, it just feels so good to actually just run, and that actually be a sort of a form of activism. Like, it's not, writing an awkward letter to a brand or your MP or something, or it's just getting out and running, and that is actually activism. So that's a great thing to look out for. If you don't mind me plugging that, the
No,
running out
definitely
of
not.
time relay.
Yeah, definitely not. How, I suppose, sustainability and green and going green is a big thing currently. How has green runners been received by the big companies? Because I know you talk about Adidas and Nike in the book quite a lot, and the company that you're an ambassador for, Innovate, and what they're doing, and how they're promoting even things about things like where they're making their products. So how has green runners been received from the big companies?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well,
Full of them.
I suppose
It's
we didn't.
absolutely full of them.
Yeah, I guess originally we didn't necessarily get much contact or feedback. I'm trying to think of sports brands, not necessarily. Um, but then when we've kicked up a bit of a noise, we have. So yeah, the main things we've sort of campaigned for, or against rather. Firstly, it was the UTMB is our flagship race, really, a 100 mile race in the Alps, French Alps, which sorry, French, Italian, and Swiss Alps, which takes place at the end of August, which I've done several times, and yeah, it's our biggest race, and it now has a high carbon sponsor. So we were mostly upset and against that idea, and there's something called the Game Changer Sponsorship Pledge, which is trying to get high carbon sponsors out of sport. So we campaigned about that, and we kicked off a petition, just not really knowing how popular it would be, whether it would get any traction. But within a couple of weeks, I had 3,000 signatures. And this is in quite a niche sport, really. So and it had a lot of, well, yeah, it got media coverage, including the Times newspaper picked it up. So and it was in America and France, and so it really then they wanted to talk to us. Yeah, then they were interested. So we have held discussions with that race. They're the biggest race in our sport. Yeah. I mean, they've been mostly civil, mostly honest discussions. It's not like, realistically, they probably aren't going to just cancel a contract, contract that's worth lots of money to them. But I think there are and will be some small wins from that. But it's like, yeah, kind of ongoing, really. And then, I mean, something else we campaigned on was we really didn't like. Yeah, you mentioned the sort of shoe problem, running shoe problem, and Adidas brought out a new super shoe that was sort of billed as a one-use only shoe. It was pretty much saying wear it for one marathon and a bit of preparation time. And we just thought this is just such the wrong message about products. None of that stuff's biodegradable. It's oil. It's made from oil. Nearly all our kit's made from oil. And we need to move away from oil. So yeah, I guess we again tried to kick a bit of a fuss. I must admit, we never heard from Adidas. They probably, I don't know if they really, I don't know how much attention we got from them, but I feel like most people shared our concerns. So yeah, I guess that's two examples of. I guess one of those is directly in our sport. We were still a bit surprised they reached out to us, but and another one. But that said, we have I can't say too much detail, but on some other race headline sponsors who were high carbon, we've had discussions with sometimes the event and sometimes the sponsor directly. Quite civil, just trying to. I guess they've been maybe surprised and maybe trying to understand where we're coming from, and we're trying to understand, I suppose, we're trying to make it clear that we sort of what they're doing isn't enough and isn't acceptable. We felt in those instances. So that's been exciting and has felt worthwhile. Trying to think anything else. I'd say races. We've chatted to races. We've had good dialogue with various races. And often small races actually approach us and say, well, we don't know where to start or what can we do. So in that regard, it's been pretty good. Yeah, it's a good question, actually. I hadn't really thought about that, but I feel like most things have been productive. But not, I guess the big guys, if you're having a go at them, I can see how they might just ignore you.
Yeah, and I know it's impacted me reading the book and listening to the book and thinking about, okay, then we've recently done Manchester Marathon and the amount of rubbish at the side of the roads. And I know they're trying to do things at Manchester Marathon, having drop zones, for example. So you drop your water bottles in an area so it's easier to pick up, so they can then recycle the bottles and things like that. But it's still not going that far enough to be able to say it's net zero with regards to carbon emissions and things like that. And I think, what can we do as runners? You said that the small wins. So what can we, because I know you talk about it in the book again, I'm not trying to spoil the book for the people that want to read the book or listen to the book, please do go and buy it. But if we all work together as a small cog, then we start to make big movements rather than all the big people doing all the big movements. We're the small movements, we can make a big movement. So what can we do to make do the small ones?
If I could just add to that as well, from what me and Rob were talking about earlier, one of the things that's quite eye-opening that he mentioned is the things that people receive as part of a race when they sign up, the things that people don't necessarily think about or contribute to the things that you're trying to change. And that's from medals, t-shirt, bibs, the goodie bags at the end where they might be getting products wrapped in plastic, those types of things. Could you just give us a bit of a headline for those that don't sort of know and aren't so aware of things, the things that might be top of the list that need to be changed in these events, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, the thing that I first heard about that drew my attention in actually was the free race t-shirt. And that's something I'd 2 or 3 years ago given no thought to. You do a race anywhere from 5K to 100 miles, and at the finish line you get handed a free t-shirt. And that feels,
Pissing in my Manchester one from the weekend. I feel
There you
terrible. Just going to wrap this blanket
That's
a bit
why I
tighter.
purposely didn't put mine on, because I thought I'm not going to put mine on.
Well, it comes with the caveat that, as long as it's being worn
Yeah.
and used, it's not a problem. But yeah, a lot of us have ended up with, I suppose, drawers full of often quite ugly, cheap t-shirts that that we're probably not going to wear. And then what do we do after? Well, maybe they go to a charity shop or somewhere, if that charity shop even wants them. But if they go, if they end up in the bin, that's yeah. Again, they're made from oil. They're not. I mean, so occasionally it's cotton, but cotton has its own issues. But yeah, polyester. Well, yeah, that's not going to biodegrade for quite some time, and it's going to leach chemicals into the ground and stuff. And landfill releases methane. It's just endless. It's endless. And even when you're washing the stuff, I suppose that means you're using it. But even when you wash stuff, it's microfibers being released into the environment. It's when you look into it, it's properly depressing. So yeah, the production of any clothing or the production of anything actually almost always releases emissions in the first place. But basically, the problem is a sort of overconsumption crisis. It's not just running world. There's a global fast fashion overconsumption crisis where things are made cheaply, sold cheaply. We don't really value them. We probably throw them away after a period of not really using them. So the free race t-shirts really fit into that. And I mean, there has been, yeah, and I think there's been an awakening, hopefully, in the running world. But yeah, actually, do I need that? Is that I must admit, if you do your first marathon, I remember getting that first half marathon t-shirt actually, and that meant a lot to me at the time, and that's okay as long as you're using it, so some races, I mean, a friend of mine formed a company called Trees Not Tees, and it's the idea that any race for free can sign up for that, and then the runner can select, do you want the t-shirt, or you could just have a tree planted instead. Or some races have done away with t-shirts altogether or charged a bit for them, and I actually think that's much smarter, because then you go, oh, actually, I've paid £10 for this. Oh, and actually, it looks good because they've had more money to create a good t-shirt. And I do have 4 or 5 race t-shirts I personally, still wear. But yeah, and the headline disturbing fact is around the world, each second a truck of clothes is put into an incinerator or landfill. Each second. So that is, that's horrifying. So yeah, the t-shirts I think is a big issue. I feel like most people hopefully are getting the message, and I guess if a race doesn't offer something like that, just politely ask, email the RD and politely sort of say, I don't know if we, do we actually need these t-shirts? So that I feel like that's something that's hopefully being won, hopefully, or the message is getting out.
Starting to revolve around the subject of clothing, we're seeing a lot more certainly in the big events that I've done recently, Manchester, Cambridge, Birmingham. The start pens have the charity collections for people taking off their clothes. It used to be the old adage that people would turn up in a black back bin liner to keep them warm. That would just get thrown to the side. That massive amount of waste. But the clothing collections at charity, I think it was British Heart Foundation, I think I might be wrong, was doing it on Sunday. I think that's obviously a start of change, but it's one of those things. I think that it's going to take a while, because even then people were running halfway down the course before they wanted to take it off. Mile 1, I still saw clothes coming off and being thrown to the curbside, which is terrible.
Yeah. So you got the sort of the t-shirts and clothing items. I guess the next thing, I mean, the plastic bottles. I still remember being surprised. My very first half marathon, 2011 Bath half. Yeah, just a bit shocked by how many water bottles were just being chucked on the road. But then it was almost a guilty secret. Just, well, everyone else was doing it, so I was doing it too. And then you look back and go, hold on, did I even want that? Did I even want that drink? And I hardly had any of it actually. And that was, a lot of this plastic. I forget the headline figure for the plastic that actually gets recycled, but it's a disturbingly low amount. So yeah, the next question is, at the moment, I think England Athletics regulations, they say there has to be water points. It might be every 5K. I don't want to be quoted on that, but like there's certain points in a race. So it might be that they need to look at that, or maybe at certain times a year. Or what happens in trail running, of course, is often we're fairly, we carry. It's not always practical if you're going for a PB on a hot day, but we carry a backpack with our own flask and we just refill the water. that way, often from a, so there's a lot less plastic waste that way. And I know London have experimented with different things, and London actually are pretty good with various things. But yeah, I think the visual things are often the plastic and the t-shirts. You can kind of see that too. However, what I found in the book was actually that's not the biggest problem. If you properly measure an event's CO2 emissions or greenhouse gas emissions, often 90% of it is from the participants and how they traveled there, depending on the race. It depends really if many people flew there. So firstly, I guess it's, well, and what we've got to say is, I suppose, with all these things like the t-shirts, it does need runners to get on board. Like I know some races have made changes, and I mean, maybe they haven't always communicated them well enough of why they're doing them, but sometimes runners haven't been on board with them. So, and change, like you say, that can take some time. But yeah, those are two issues, and then it's the runner travel. And yeah, I mean, I've tried to get better at that, but sometimes, yeah, I mean, sometimes, well, especially my races aren't often in a public transport friendly place. Actually, they're often, in the hills far away. So what could races do? I mean, I would urge them to try and incentivize either public transport or actually car sharing. Getting 4 people in the car is the same emissions as usually as a train or a bus journey. So that's actually pretty good. And I think most of us, if you've got a mate going, or especially if it's from a local running club, that's a eco-friendly way to travel, really. However, I think races, should be incentivizing that properly, and that probably does mean some sort of financial incentive. I mean, maybe you stick the car parking up to a higher rate, but actually, if 4 people are in the car, they get it for £1 rather than £10, or if there's 3 people, maybe it's 2 or 3 quid, that sort of thing. I personally, I'd like to see more of that. I think that would be a good thing. But yeah, the plastic stuff is running has a plastic and t-shirt problem as well.
I think
yeah.
with everything in the country and in the world, I suppose a lot of work has been done around sustainability and reusability and things like that. I work in the NHS and we're rubbish at it, and we are trying to get better. We are trying to do things, and it's starting with them small wins that then build up to more. So, for example, I'm involved in the travel and transport for the trust that I'm working in, and how we can make it better. It's incentivizing things for people to do things better. So, for example, I live about 4 miles away from my work. I could easily, if I got a push bike, get a push bike, or I could easily run into work. However, when I get to work, there's nowhere for me to have a shower, or there's nowhere for me to store my equipment, store my clothes after I've got there. If there was somewhere, I'm probably more likely to get up that half an hour earlier to get to work, to run to work. So it's these small wins, it's these incentivizing things to make people think about it without having to read a book, for example, and making it more mainstream. Because I didn't know anything about, I'll openly admit, half of the stuff that you were talking about in the book, I knew nothing about until now. But I think it's making people aware without having to go and explore and find out for themselves, and putting it right in front of them, saying, "Here, have a look at this. This is what you're doing to the planet." And then it's up to them to make that decision if they make changes or not. So, for example, you talk in the book about veganism and going vegan. I'm a meat eater. My dad's a butcher. But even by listening to the book, and I'm not just saying this because you're here and trying to blow smoke up your bottom, but I am considering reducing the amount of meat that I eat, because I never knew how it's cattle farms are doing deforestation and things like that within the planet. So it is about how we make it more mainstream and how people are made aware of what's going on. So I think by doing that with the green runners, I think it's really, really good that you are, and getting people on board. I'm going to pledge to join. So how can people join green runners?
Well, yeah, I mean, you sort of said earlier, like what should runners do, and there's almost two. Sorry, I'll come around to that in a second.
Okay,
I've got no problem. There's almost, these things do actually overlap, but for now, let's draw a line between them. You've almost got personal actions of like on your own footprint, or maybe your family's footprint, and then you've got kind of collective action / pushing for system change, which sounds a lot more dramatic. And what does that really mean? And the obvious thing is that means, like, I suppose voting is a really obvious example of what that might mean. But I would also say that means joining the Green Runners. I don't mean to go around sort of on a recruitment drive, but that's the easiest way a runner could go, right, I want to join a collective force for good, force for change. And then the personal stuff is, I think it's all worth knowing about and exploring, but it's hard, and you'll only get so far. And like you say, things like, I mean, I went vegan, but I was never really a big meat eater, so I found it quite fun and quite interesting and stuff. But yeah, it's harder for some people, and I've got a friend who, I mean, culturally, she's just from a culture that meat was very central to it. It's much harder. So yeah, we're not trying to say everyone has to be vegan by any means at all. But yeah, so those personal actions, and certainly I should emphasize, we're not after perfection at all. I flew to a race this year. You mentioned car journeys. I am going to do a car journey tomorrow. That it just makes more sense. Like I get in public transport a lot more than I used to, but often it's very expensive, and it takes a lot of time. And the government could be helping with that. But back to how do you join? Yeah, you just simply go to the website, thegreenrunners.com, and then all we ask, I think it's about £2.50, and that gets you your badge. We considered making T-shirts, but that seemed a little bit against the
that was going to be one of your questions.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a tricky debate. It didn't last long, actually. But it was, and then all we ask of people is to consider, we have 4 pillars. So it's how you kit up, how you travel, how you fuel, and how you speak up. So all we say to people is, these are the 4 sort of principles almost. Could you make an improvement on at least one of them? So all you'd have to say, and you don't have to do it publicly. I mean, a lot of people do it on social media, which is great, and could really have a snowballing effect on friends and so on. But you don't have to. But it might just be, okay, actually I flew 3 times last year. For maybe it's for running, maybe not. All right, I'm only going to fly once this year. Or I'm going to say you're a big meat eater, you eat meat, I don't know, 7 days a week. You're going to try, I don't know, what's realistic? 5 at first, or 3, or
yeah. For me, I must admit, meat most days. I must, but you term it something in the book, and I can't remember. Flex in it, flexible.
Oh, flexitarian is
the
quite
word.
A flexible idea, actually.
Yeah,
I think trying to get away from this, Damian. If previous guests, we've had North Stafford's Roadrunners chairman come on, and I signed up. We've had Helen Ryvar, who's running a half marathon streak, and we both committed to a run streak. Don't let him get away from this. If you push him now, he'll go down to 1 day a week of meat. If you put pressure on him,
I'm going full vegan.
I'm quite fancying the Mohawk as well, to be fair. I might completely transform into yourself. So if that's all right.
Rob, that's clearly by choice, mate. I don't think you're going to get that.
I know.
It's half choice, I'll be honest. I haven't got many options left. I mean, it does, well, I was going to say it does shave on shampoo, but you're already in those areas. But yeah, so it's just up to the individual. No one's judging you or telling you what you should or shouldn't do. It's up to you to think, well, here I am with these 4 areas. I think I could improve on that area. Or actually, I think that how you speak up is the most important one, because I do think the sort of nudging for system change, the collective action is more important. I guess you're almost doing one by joining the Green Runners, and if you told friends or shared that on social media, you'd already be fulfilling that pledge, to my mind. So it's that simple, really.
It's almost like that massive pop out sometimes, that people go, well, I can't do something to 100%, so I may as well not do it. And I think we've got, obviously we don't know exactly how many people are listening to the podcast each week, and obviously different guests come on, we get different numbers. But I think if everybody's listening to this and thinks, you know what, I can do one thing that is going to help, whether that be next time there's a race, I'm not going to take the T-shirt, or next time I'm doing a run, I'm going to take a refillable cup, or I'm going to start going to trail races rather than road races, because I know there's obviously a lot more change in trail races in terms of they do water filling stations and stuff. If we're doing the thing of not eating meat 7 days a week and going down to 5, everybody could do one little thing, then I think we are going to get a lot closer to the goals of the Green Runners, right?
Yeah, I mean that's great, and then it's amazing how much influence we have on each other and our friends. And I was just doing a chat, I think yesterday, and it on this topic, and I realized that well, I had two good friends. Like a long time ago, I spent a lot of time in Australia, and my best friend there was a Canadian called Ryan, and he was very into this. Well, you know, before it was trendy, he was very into these ideas, and I used to tease him, to be honest, and sort of, you know, I wasn't really on board with it, but since I sort of moved away, I was like, you know, he was right. He was right. This stuff's important and serious. And I realized that, yeah, him just talking to me about it, I didn't respond right away, but over time I did, and then I suppose that's led to the book, and I'm not claiming to have started the Green Runners on my own, but like maybe it's led to that, and so it, you know, there's, you know, you can really see a snowball there. So yeah, I would say if someone does one thing, but ideally tells one other person about it, you know, yeah, and then these some of these things become normalized, you know, normal behaviors. Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe it should work.
And I believe you. I think it really will work, and I suppose it's just them small changes making, and then hopefully that will make, because I've got children. I want to make sure that the planet's still around for when their children has children. So it's making sure we can do things now, because in the consumer world that we are in, and I know you talk about it again in the book, things, people like the big companies are still going to make things. It's about us saying, actually, no, I don't need that. I've got trainers that are okay, that I know they're over 500 miles within them, but they're still okay, and I can still use them. They're not going to cause me an injury. The t-shirts that I've got are adequate, and I'm going to use them. And if I do break my trainers, I can fix them, rather than replacing them. I can fix them. It's about making them small changes. It's really, really important.
Well, nearly everything you've said there actually would save you money as well. So
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
yeah.
So I my wardrobe upstairs is probably doesn't really change very often, and that's because I don't like spending money. So I'm fully on board. I am a green runner. It's to save me money, but also to save the planet as well. Definitely.